Hey there. Ready to dive into the world of Twilight? Maybe uncover a character you haven't thought about in a while.
I'm game if you are.
We are tackling Leah Clearwater this time around.
Interesting choice. I'm curious to see where you go with this. She's definitely one of the most, shall we say, complex characters in the series.
Right. The only female werewolf, for starters, which has to come with its own baggage.
So,
But she's also so much more than just the other woman, which is kind of how she gets painted sometimes.
yeah, it's easy to get caught up in the whole love triangle thing, but when you really dig into Leah's story, you realize she's got so much depth. She turns the typical Twilight female character on its head.
No kidding.
Mm.
So where do we even start? I mean, even if you haven't picked up the books in ages, you remember the whole Sam and Emily saga?
Totally. And seeing that whole thing from Leah's perspective, well, it hits different, let me tell you. Imagine, right, being a teenager, dealing with a breakup already brutal.
Oof, yeah. Teenage heartbreak is its own special kind of pain.
Exactly. But then add on top of that, your ex, who's also, by the way, the pack alpha, he imprints on your cousin. Talk about a recipe for emotional turmoil.
Yikes. Talk about adding insult to injury. And werewolf imprinting isn't just some fleeting crush either. It's like destiny-level connection, right?
Exactly. It's not just that Sam, chose Emily. It's like the universe itself was conspiring against Leah. Like he could never truly be hers in that imprinted forever kind of way werewolves have.
Oh, totally. It's like being reminded that you weren't even in the running for a happily ever after.
It's rough. And I think that's where a lot of the anger we see from Leah comes from. She's carrying this deep, almost primal kind of sadness, and people mistake it for bitterness.
Right. They write her off as just being angry, but there's so much more going on under the surface.
Totally. I mean, imagine for a second being bombarded by everyone else's thoughts and emotions 24/7.
Cool.
We know Leah resents being a werewolf, but think about how suffocating that has to be. No wonder she wants to escape.
You're right. I hadn't thought about it like that. It's like she can never turn it off. Always connected. Even when you want to break from, well, everyone.
Exactly. That's the thing about Leah. This telepathy, this thing that's supposed to be a gift, for her it's a curse. And it intensifies that feeling of being trapped in the pack.
And that is so different from characters like Jacob, right?
Yeah.
He finds this amazing sense of belonging within the pack, a
Yeah.
purpose, even when things are tough.
Exactly. He embraces it while Leah feels like it's this weight dragging her down. No wonder she lashes out. It's her way of grabbing back some control in a world where she feels powerless.
It makes you wonder, if things would have been different if there had been another female werewolf in the pack. Someone who got what it was like, being the only woman in this crazy, intense, male-dominated world.
Oh, that's really interesting. We never see Leah with other female werewolves, do we? I mean, she's close to Seth, but even with family, there's this sense of differentness.
It's like she's carrying this invisible weight that no one else seems to see, let alone understands,
Yeah.
and yet she keeps going. She keeps pushing forward. It's pretty remarkable when you think about it.
And that's what makes her so compelling, right? She doesn't get that traditional happy ending that some of the other characters get.
You mean like Bella? Talk about a whirlwind romance.
Exactly. Or even like Jacob finding his place within the pack. Leah's story, it's messier, more, true to life in a way.
And yet, even without that neatly tied up ending, there's something so powerful about her connection with Jacob, especially in Breaking Dawn.
Oh, absolutely. Totally agree. Not romantic, obviously, but it runs deep. Two outsiders, both carrying stars, finding solace in each other. They understand each other in a way no one else seems to. Like they can be vulnerable with each other, rage, just feel,
Yeah.
and there's no judgment.
So powerful. It really makes you think about how we define strength, especially in female characters. Because Leah's isn't about always having the answers, being perfect. She gets back up time after time, even when it's hard. That's strength, too.
Absolutely, 100%. It's that resilience, refusing to be broken. That's Leah in a nutshell.
It's honestly so refreshing. Especially, well, how often do we see female characters and their whole story is finding a romance?
All the time. It's almost like Leah's a walking commentary on that whole trope, right? She's not defined by needing a partner, finding a guy.
No, she's on a journey figuring herself out, and that's compelling, even if it's messy, and doesn't tie things up perfectly.
Exactly. Readers connect with that, even if they don't realize it. It's real.
Something else that I thought was really interesting, these notes you gave me, Meyer herself, she called Leah one of the most tragic characters. Sounds harsh, but I kind of see it.
There's this feeling of unfulfilled potential there, yeah? Like, we never know if Leah finds her peace, her place. But not having that closure, while kind of frustrating, it does get you thinking.
Forces us to deal with the unknown, huh? Like sometimes life just doesn't have that perfect ending all wrapped up.
And that's okay. It's about what you do with that uncertainty, right? Leah's still out there, choosing her path, even if it's scary.
Like leaving the pack at the end of Breaking Dawn. That's a big deal. Choosing herself over everything she's ever known.
Huge. Especially in those books, with all the grand gestures of love, the sacrifices people make. Leah choosing herself, it's almost quiet, but so profound.
It's subversive. And you know what else? We haven't even touched on her humor. That sharp wit. I mean, the girl's got jokes.
Oh, totally. And people think it's just bitterness, but it's so much more than that. It's intelligence, perceptiveness, finding the funny even when things are tough.
It's a defense mechanism, sure, but it's also kind of brilliant. Remember in Eclipse when she tells Bella, I'm the resident humorist, my job is to make everyone else feel better about
Well,
themselves.
classic Leah, and so true, right? She uses humor to deal with the pain, being the odd one out.
And she's relatable. Who hasn't used humor to deflect when they feel awkward or vulnerable? It's just that Leah's stakes are a little higher, shall we say.
A little. But that human element, the vulnerability beneath it all, that's what makes her interesting.
And you can't ignore the only female werewolf aspect of it either, right?
Yeah.
It's like she's pointing out how absurd this male-dominated world is.
Totally. Whether it was intentional or not, there's social commentary there, expectations on women, even in a supernatural setting. She calls it out.
Makes her relevant even now.
Yeah.
You know, we're still having these conversations about gender roles, expectations, and Leah's right there with us.
100%. Feeling like you don't belong, navigating relationships, finding your own version of happy when everyone else has an opinion. That's
Yeah.
timeless.
All while turning into a giant wolf, no less.
Uh-huh.
But it's those human struggles that stick with you.
Absolutely. Hands down. And Leah Clearwater, she forces us to confront them head on, the human heart, you know?
Yeah.
Even with all its contradictions and messiness, that's what we remember.
Well said. Speaking of messy and fascinating, Leah's relationships with some of these other characters, particularly Sam and Seth, those are worth exploring.
Definitely. Let's start with Sam, because, I mean, talk about a lot of baggage there.
It's easy to paint Sam as the bad guy, right? But there's more to it.
So much more. I mean, imprinting. That's not a choice. He's basically hardwired to feel that way about Emily.
Yeah, and I feel like people forget that part. They blame him, Leah blames him, for something he can't control.
Totally. It doesn't make it hurt any less, obviously. But they're both victims in a way, you know? Stuck in this impossible situation.
And then you've got Seth, right? Leah's younger brother. You'd think that'd be a source of comfort, maybe, but it's complicated.
It really is. You know, the typical sibling thing, you expect them to have each other's backs no matter what. But with Leah and Seth, there's a layer of something else there.
It feels more real, though, doesn't it? Like what brother and sister, especially teenagers, are always on the same page.
Right. And the fact that Seth actually thrives in the pack, it's got to sting a little for Leah seeing that. It's like, here's this thing that's torturing her, and he's over there loving it.
Yeah, and you can tell she's not angry at him exactly. It's more like seeing his happiness just underscores what she's missing.
Absolutely. And the fact that she never takes it out on him, that says a lot about her. She's hurting, but she still protects him, pushes him away sometimes, sure, but he's always got her back.
There's that duality again, right? So much love for her brother, but she's got to protect herself, too.
Emotionally, I mean.
Exactly. It's what makes her such a fascinating character. She's complicated, you know? And thank goodness Meyer didn't shy away from that. Real people are messy.
For sure. It's easy to write characters that are all good or all bad. But Leah, she's both. Wounded, but still so fierce. Wanting connection, but pushing it away. That's real life.
Right. And that's what makes Leah's story so powerful. She doesn't get a fairy tale ending. No big romantic moment, no huge battle to win. Her victory, it's quieter, more internal. It's that moment she chooses herself, walks away from everything she's ever known and just goes. That image always sticks with me. Leah walking off into the sunset. Alone, yeah, but also hopeful. Like, she's going to be okay. She's not defined by being a werewolf or heartbreak or what other people think she should do or be.
Exactly. And I think that's why readers connect with her so strongly, even all these years later. She's a reminder that strength comes in all forms. Sometimes it's loud and obvious, but sometimes it's that quiet voice inside you saying, hey, you deserve better. And that's Leah, you know? She reminds us all that it's okay to walk away from something that's not serving you, to go find your own path, even if it's scary.
I love that because it makes you think, right, what does true strength look like? Is it fitting in perfectly? Or is it having the guts to say, nope, I'm making my own rules?
Yeah.
Something to chew on there, listeners. Something to chew on.